angels stand and listen, for they cannot join that song. Like the sound of many waters, by the happy blood washed throng. For they sing about great trials, battles fought and victories won. And they praise their great Redeemer, who had said to them, well done. Holy, holy is what the angels sing. And I expect to help them make the chords of heaven ring. That when I sing redemption story, they will fold their wings. For angels never felt the joys that our salvation brings. So although I'm not an angel, yet I know that over there I will join a blessed chorus that the angels cannot share. I will sing about my Savior, who upon the Calvary freely pardoned my transgressions, died to set us sinner free. Holy, holy is what the angels sing, and I expect to help them make the chords of heaven ring. But when I sing redemption story, they will fold their wings. For angels never felt the joys that our salvation brings. Amen. Happy Sabbath once again. Happy Sabbath once again. Happy day. Amen. We are going to sing hymn number 10. Come, Christians, join to sing.
Good afternoon, church. A very good afternoon to you. I want to welcome you to this afternoon program. And together with the women's on this Women's Sabbath, the Family Life Department would like to take you through couples and conflict management. In the morning, we had ended now domestic violence. But you understand that some violence is as a result of conflicts that are not managed well. And so we want to sharpen our minds, to share views, so that we understand how do we resolve conflicts in a relationship among couples so that it doesn't go that way to cause violence or to tatter the relationship of homes as we see now. With me, I have a psychologist, a counseling psychologist, Mrs. Rufafa Evelyn. Evelyn, you are welcome.
Thank you, Elder.
We want to appreciate your presence and finding time to come and share with us your experience and what you have come to understand when couples come to you and they say, we have issues and we don't resolve them. How better can we put them right? Maybe in the audience out there, you may be having one or two issues which you have failed to maneuver through. Maybe a dose from our counselor will be in position to help you out. How do you move in those steps to ensure that you honestly do that conflict in a good and a better environment? In a few minutes, we'll be joined by Elder Bukundika Ezra, who will also share his experience. Evelyn.
Yes, Elder.
Conflict. When the family begins, it begins on the foundation of love. And we go to the church and we have vows and we say, for better or for worse, I will love you, I will cherish you, I will protect you, and all those sweet words we use at the pulpit as we are getting married. When we get into the home, the tables turn around. What used to be precious in your sight is no longer. And there are some things that come that brings that. It may be neglecting responsibility. As a husband, as a wife, you choose to take on your responsibility, but time comes and you negate them. And it may cause conflict. It may be individual weakness. I may be having my weakness. It may be money matters. Money has complicated issues in a relationship. It may be in-laws. Some are outward and they come in. And all these cause jealous, they cause hatred and all that. To begin with, counselor, what are the strategies a couple can use to disconnect tensions, to diffuse these arguments when they arise?
Thank you so much, Elder. It's a very good question. And maybe before I begin on that note, because when people hear about conflict, it looks like it's an academic word. But the thing is, the real struggles that normal people go through if we are more than one, because it's hard to have a conflict just with only yourself until you meet someone whom you're able to exchange with. So maybe I'll start by first helping to normalize what conflict is. To begin with, it's important for us to note that conflict is part of human life. It's part and parcel of us. Conflict will arise in many ways, maybe disagreement. Sometimes it can even lead to violence. And because of the false beliefs from social media, when we are young, because now this time we are looking at conflict in a relationship, a marriage relationship. When we are young, we read books, we see TV, and we see people living, happily ever after. There's lots of fairy tale, but there's real life when two people live together. By the mere fact that we come from different backgrounds, we will conflict on one thing or another, but there are levels. People might conflict, but they are able to handle their issues, and that is normal. The issue becomes when it even leads to violence, like they were preaching this morning, and therefore why it's important to have some strategies that can enable a couple to live together They might have conflict, but at least they need some tools to help them on how to handle, because like we said, it's inevitable, so it's unavoidable, in other words. So Elder asked about the strategies. There are some strategies here I identified, but because this is a discussion, even you in the audience, you're free to write down that comment, that you want to add, because this is not the end of it. People have very many strategies that work for them, but I'm just identifying a few that are known and maybe also researched about. One of them is, it's usually important to remember what we call self-regulation skills. If it were possible, this should be taught when children are young as nursery school. When I'm angry, am I able to count 1 to 5? And you know, when I feel a lot of anger, am I able to listen to myself and say, I'm really getting so angry, what can I do? Should I punch someone? Or I need to regulate these feelings so that they calm down and I'm able to express myself. Because usually at the workplace, we have bosses, right?
Sure.
But when your boss annoys you, what helps you to self-regulate? Hardly will you say, hey, please, I'll show you. You'll calmly you listen, and you humbly walk away, and then you go and tell your friends, can you imagine my boss did this to me? But when you've not shouted at him. But when it's much easier to hurt people that are closer to us, they are more vulnerable because you know them so much. So we can use these same regulation skills that we do when we are with other people who are not our partners. One of them is deep breathing. When you're getting angry, you can sense yourself. And in most cases for couples, some other time recently we learned about EFT, emotionally focused therapy, and we were taught that usually there are things that are a pattern, like it's a pattern. There's this thing that you usually will end up, maybe quarreling about or fighting about, not physically, but you're fighting about this thing, but it's usually the same thing. So you're able to sense that I'm about to get out of myself, so you take a deep breath. In most cases, when you breathe from your diaphragm and you take in 3 good deep breathing, there's a way in which the brain receives calmliness. So if you wanted to throw the other big word, you'll end up changing the word and you package it better, because it's easier to package a very hurtful word to someone that you love than someone who is just your boss, or, because you'll be worried that if I say this and I lose my job. But even the people we stay with, when the word is packaged badly, you can also create long-term resentment. So deep breathing is one of them. It helps you to calm down so that you can be able to maybe speak what you want in a good way. Then focusing on your feelings. In most cases, we do not like, this is according to John Gottman. He wrote a book called 8 Deaths. It's very good, 8 Deaths. He gives very many skills. And one of them, he maintains that it's good to focus on your feelings. In most cases, the time you're hot and you're fighting about something with your loved one, there's something that you feel. You're either feeling embarrassed or rejected, or you're feeling lonely, you're feeling jealous. When you recognize your own feelings and you focus on them and you say, I feel hurt. Every time I see you, okay, I will reiterate the words of the preacher in the morning. She said very sensitive things and said, sometimes maybe people hug other people's husbands. Now, the person will not go and say, you hugged this person and I felt bad. You always do this and then, but the person you're telling is not aware that you felt jealousy when they hugged some other lady. But then when you say, I feel jealousy every time I see you hugging this person, then the person will empathize and say, oh, okay, maybe it will allow this person an opportunity to know that, so, I've been doing this innocently. I didn't know it hurts you. But then it can be a pattern, and then the person continues hugging, maybe doing other things that you don't like, but because we do not say what we feel exactly. Then also, each person should share their own perspective. Like, listen from the perspective of the other person. In most cases, we want to think for the person, the opponent, the person that we're having a fight with, especially our loved one, because you've prepared a list of things to pin them. But it's good to listen to their perspective. They also listen to your own perspective, so that you can be able to validate each other and say, oh, I see. So this is how this action interrupted you. They have an opportunity to say something. Just to know that as human beings, no one wants to be told what to do. No one wants to be blamed. Just like you don't want to be blamed, another person doesn't want to be blamed. So every time that you are waiting to say, you always, by the time you finish the statement, they have also prepared. They will also say, you also always. So you keep pointing at each other, and that is how some people even can end up being violent. But the moment you begin from that perspective, or that I feel so bad every time, there's no way this person is going to wait to charge, because you did not start by judging them. And also, this one is very, very important. We use it a lot in session. We usually ask our clients that, what do you usually notice when this is going to happen? What are your triggers? It's very important to know what triggers you. You know, we know ourselves very well, better than anyone. I can be able to know that this thing is going to annoy me. So once you notice your triggers, discuss with your partner. Let them know that, by the way, when you start throwing maybe things everywhere, I get triggered. So I might either shout or do something, and maybe when they do that, they might mind and say, oh, I know you're about to shout, but just forgive my naughtiness, or forgive, and it becomes like a joke. Otherwise, if they don't know that this triggers you, they'll keep doing it until it becomes, you even get into violence. But then this is something that one needs to know. We all have our triggers. We have things that can get us off quickly, so that the person can know that, okay, this one is going to, is going to make my partner get off, you know? Remember, we grow up from different families. Some people have a rejection spirit. Others feel unloved. So when these things happen, these things come up, and it's what triggers them into that kind of spiral conflicts. So discuss with this loved one. Let them know that these things trigger you, and they can listen and get to know the real common triggers. Okay, those are some of the things I could say.
We want to appreciate Evelyn for such a wonderful presentation on how we can plan and ensure that these strategies work. What may work for me may not work for you, but choose what exactly works for you. Communication, please give me the third microphone. With me again, I have Elder Ezra Bukundika. Thank you for joining us on this panel and sharing your experience with us. We are talking about couples and conflict management. And Councillor Evelyn has just talked about triggers, and I want you to pick it up from there. As an educationist, as a counselor, as a peace mentor, I want you to let our audience know how they can understand these triggers and emotional responses that come from our partners. How am I in position to detect them and not press them anymore, so that it doesn't reoccur in our conflicts?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
I'm so privileged that I can be able to have my thoughts onto this sensitive discussion, couples and conflicts. I love to appreciate the discussant who has been able to share a number of techniques for managing conflicts. I've been following lately. I think let me add one or two to what she has been able to submit. Then I can quickly go on to the triggers. Okay. It's always important to address conflicts early enough to prevent escalation. Many people are reserved. They keep building up conflicts over years. One does this, one takes note. The other does this, one takes note. By the time they explode, it is extremely out of hand. What happens? Handle it at a time. When you identify a problem, kindly address it. And when you are to address it, address to the person who is responsible. Don't begin to involve third parties. Don't begin to bring family members. Don't begin to bring pastors before you can address the problem to the right person. Talk to your spouse. I think I'm not comfortable over this, so that we can share the two, because this relationship, you are the principal parties in the relationship. So it's important that you can discuss within yourselves, learn what the problem is, and handle it when it is still a little early.
Elder, on that, there is a school of thought where they say some of us, our temperament cannot allow us to speak out. I'm a melancholy. So when he speaks, I just keep quiet. And by the time a melancholy puts it out, he's bringing a bomb.
Well, when you enter into a relationship, it is a process. I call it work in what? In progress. And the Bible says the two become one. The two becoming one is a process that there are several things within you that have to change for the good of the relationship.
Okay.
The personality differences you begin to work on yourself, assuming you are temperamental, you're a little aggressive, but this aggressiveness affects the relationship, then you begin working on it so that the two can become one.
Okay.
But if you say, I'll be this and I'll always be like that, then the chances are high that the two will never become one. The two becoming one means that you begin to see what are some of my behavior traits that are likely going to affect our relationship. And you begin working on them, just as the other part also does the same, so that the two of you can now become a little more compatible.
Wonderful.
So
The triggers and the emotions.
Oh, thank you. The triggers of emotions, let's first identify some of them. She was able to highlight a number. Some people get irritated due to lack of attention. Somebody sends a text message to you, "Hail, love," you ignore. That can also be a trigger for what? Conflict. And when you don't have effective communication, your spouse wants to talk to you, you sound rude. "Excuse me, love, can we have a discussion? Don't you know that I'm busy?" So you don't give attention to someone, and as you fail to give attention, the emotional distress within her is also what? Growing.
Okay.
So some of these, you can identify them, that when I don't give somebody attention, I'm causing what? Emotional triggers.
Okay.
Then sometimes you can be fond of friendship with members of opposite sex. It's only, you even brag around it. You see, I'm always comfortable with the only male friends. And your spouse is not comfortable when she sees you with what? Male friends.
Yeah.
Like I said, the principle is that the two become what? One. Now, when you are to become one, you begin to identify that there are some things at this status that I don't need in my life, because you are no longer single. You are now what? Married, or you are now relating. So there are some things that begin to change within you. Then you can be full of workaholic methods. You are always preoccupied with work, and you have no time for the what? For your spouse, no any time for what? For your family. Trip after trip. Activity after activity. So this can also be triggers for conflicts. Then you always have a lot of conversation with your ex. There are so many people, when you are being, what ceremony is that? When the officiating marriage?
The wedding.
That one. Now, there is the past is always clear that you have left all the others and you are going to be born with this person. Now, instead of leaving them, you continue with them. This can cause a lot of distress because how will your spouse be sure that it's just a mere high? So it's also important that you avoid such kind of things of having a lot of time for your ex and having less time for your spouse. Then you forget important things to them. It is her birthday, but you tell her you forgot. This can be emotional what? Triggers. And then sometimes you over-criticize them. You have turned your home like a CID headquarters. You are always interrogating her. Tell me. Answer this. You are always fond of looking into her phones or looking who called and who did not what? How do you turn your home into a CID headquarters? Did you establish a police station? So I would love that you must clearly know that you are now having a relationship. You focus on the positive, not the what? The negative. Focus on things that build you as a couple, not focusing on one weakness. However, weaknesses are normal. But in psychology we say, what you focus at is what you get. When you focus at negatives, you're going to get what? Negatives. When you focus at positives, you're going to get what? Positives. Focus on somebody's strength, and the strength will eventually help her to overcome the what? The weaknesses. Then we'll need to have what we call emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to learn your feelings and be able to control them. And in this case, you become very assertive. You don't become reactionary, you become responsive. There's a difference between being reactionary and being what? Responsive. They say between the stimulus, there is that gap, what called response. And you have a choice to make on how you should what? Respond. It is not what happens to us that matter. It is how we respond. If she has done something wrong, how do you respond? That is what we call emotional what? Intelligence. When you don't have emotional intelligence, then you may not be able to handle the emotional triggers.
I want to appreciate Elder Ezra for your words. You mentioned about people seeing the negative things, and I will come back to that. There are couples or some spouses whereby you present a project and what he sees is what will not work. And he puts you down. You buy high dress and what he sees is the car you bought was not right. And they start with the negatives. Not that they want to, but I don't know, are they wired that way? That what they see are the negatives. Then later they remember, thank you, anyway, it was nice. How do they work on that? But let me come to Evelyn. Evelyn, we've talked about the emotions and all this. You know, when we talk about conflict, we think it is a conversation. It is not. I'm heated up. I'm up on the roof. Now, how do you advise a couple to improve on the communication during these conflicts? Because at times our tonation is the one that fuels the conflict that would actually be worse.
Okay, thank you, Elder. Yes, how a couple can improve on their communication during conflict. To begin with, communication is the vehicle we use when we are relating with other people. We just can't relate without communication. So if there was anything that we took lots of time learning in school, should have been how to communicate. Unfortunately, usually these important things are not given a lot of time. I love this guy because I know that he's a renowned researcher on relationships. He has done even tests in the lab using urine, everything. They even did a test where they could watch a couple, how they communicate, and they would know that this couple will divorce in the future. And this is still John Gottman. He's very popular. You can follow Gottman on YouTube. You can read his books. You'll not go wrong. He works together with his wife. He's a very good research on relationships. So according to Gottman, For he says that 60% of problems in our relationships are actually, they are perpetual. Like, it means they will go on and on. That's why we say it's hard to say, okay, you know those days when we were teaching, I think I moved away from that a bit. After growing in my profession, we used to tell couples that now, you see, use I statements, blah, 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 blah. But the person has the anger. You'll forget those things and just say what? So then he says it's better people learn their skills of maybe self-regulation. So because they'll go on and on, he also says that smaller things, you can work on them and resolve them. And usually the smaller things are fewer because people have differences in all areas of life. So in your communication during conflicts, because some of these conflicts have been on, working with couples, I've worked with some people who are in their middle ages, and you realize the thing that they are, there's this thing that has brought them for counseling, that is immediate, but then it has an attachment to something that they had 15, 20 years ago when they were just meeting. Someone says, when I had left to go and do over my PhD in Canada, I used to call you and you used not to pick my calls. I hear you were speaking to some girl in the village. You can imagine, these are 20 years down the road. So, like I said, usually he says there's the pattern, you know? So it's very important to recognize the pattern. And this one is coming up in recent research in this, what I talked about as emotionally focused therapy. Each couple can notice their pattern of the conflict. It's very good to even, sometimes it's good, some therapists told us that we can even give it a name and say maybe for them they call it the dance, but other people can now name and say if the pattern is coming, you can give it a name and say, oh, the ugly thing is coming up, you know? Because usually you go back on a certain pattern, like you don't go away from it. You've thought about it, it comes up all the time, but you still go ahead and fight about it. So when you recognize the pattern that still comes out, catch it and give it a name, and maybe you see it differently. For instance, it can be something about, usually what couples might argue about might be how child raising. We grow up in different families. Our parents are raised us differently, and we know discipline is different. For some families, grew up knowing that disciplining a child, you must beat them up. Someone has grown up in a family whereby there was no touch system, and they are going to say, for me, don't touch my children. So that can become the pattern. Every time there's an issue with the child, the guy is going to come up with this, then the lady is going to come up, then, you know. But the whole thing is, what is this that, if you can recognize that usually when it comes to things to do with the children, what comes to your mind? You start remembering that this man is going to beat the children and I'm going to get very mad about it. So it's good to discuss and say, this ugly thing is coming up again. What do we do? I think, you know what, the things about children, we fail to agree. Let us first sit and discuss. How can we balance? Because we have different ways of disciplining children. Sometimes it's balanced, sometimes it's not balanced. Until you talk about it, the pattern can go on. People can even separate because of children. Aren't children a blessing?
They are.
But people can separate because there's this pattern that keeps going on, or agreeing on what we should, you know, how our family should run, how we manage money. It is this thing that keeps coming up. You always waste money. You always spend a lot of money. And then they also say, but why do when I talk about money, you know? So this pattern keeps coming up, but we refuse to recognize it. One, I don't know if just from where we are, how we are raised, we fear facing our emotions. We fear saying the real thing that I get scared when you start spending money. I get worried. I just get worried. I think that you're going we are going to get broke. Huh? Maybe I grew up in a family whereby we did not have a lot. And so every time I see someone squandering money, the fear comes back. that I remember my father used to squander money a lot, and we were not doing well in the family, so maybe I might go into this. So discuss those fears, talk about them, because in most cases, they are the ones that come back and interface during this period. But the person thinks you are against them, but the truth is there is that underlying fear that you've not told them about. And then also, it's very important to give time to each person. One speaks and the other responds. When people are just in love for the first time, usually one will speak and the other will listen. After some years, both speak and no one listens. And listening is part of communication. In my profession, I'm paid for listening to people's issues. Listening is the most key, by the way, because the client will even tell me that for the first time, I've been listened to without being interrupted. Because naturally, we have this burning desire to talk back. Before you finish, let me cut you there, you see? So you even help the person to complete the story. Yeah? They were just going to talk about something. I know you're going to talk about my hair. Please leave me alone. You see? This judgmental kind of communication. There are people who are called communication assassins. Like, they will use words that are very, very hard, you know? Someone will think for the other even before they think. I know when it comes to my mother, you don't care. The person has not even said it. So it's very good to give one person time. And by the way, when you try it, you realize that you even wanted to get out of your mind for nothing. This person had a different meaning, but because you misinterpreted them, they will also not give you time to listen. Then, but even when you're listening, listen from the other person's perspective, not your own. Because when you listen from your perspective, you're going to put there your words, and because we are different, this time it's between a man and the woman. Men do things differently. For them, they use reason. Women use emotion. Yeah? So because the emotions will go ahead, the woman will, in a short time, they are crying. So then someone will come and think, I think it's the man who is very bad. But because one of them is highly emotional and wants things to be solved there and then the I statements, like I said, every time you start with and tell me that you always do this, what do you think I'm going to do? At that time, I'm also boiling, waiting for my turn to say, and you? Don't you also do the same? Mm-hmm. But once I say, I really feel so sad every time you do this. That's a reflection statement. The person will even, you know, they'll come back to their senses. I don't feel good whenever you do this thing. You come back home. I feel bad when you come back home late because I imagine that something might happen to you, and that is what you want to communicate. But instead, you will say, you always come back late. But the truth is there was an underlying fear that supposing you come late, and while we are opening the gate, someone hits you with a what? With an iron bar. It's what you feel like saying that, but because you want to, the emotion begets you and you end up saying it different. So let's practice using from the I. The person will not be threatened. The moment you say you prepare them for a fight. So understand from their perspective, understand your differences. The differences are because you're male and the other one is female. The way you do your things is totally different. In most cases as couples, we spend most of our early years, especially when we are young, we spend most of our early years trying to change each other. And usually that's one of the biggest frustrations, because in my time we read Mill and Bull. So Mills and Boone. Barbara, don't laugh. Yeah, in my time we read Mills and Boone. I don't know who has ever heard about that book. Mills and Boone. So when we were young in senior 2, we read those books. And those books used to end with happily ever. So we thought after life is just, everything is rosy. But that is not the real life. So you need to understand that men reason differently. When a woman sees a shoe and says, oh, I want to buy that shoe, it's so nice, the guy will say, you have 5 pairs of shoes at
The
home.
budget.
Yes, the budget, you know, and then he will even begin thinking, this money, a shoe of 100,000, those would be 2 bags of cement. Because for him, he will not pass and admire a shoe and say, oh, I've seen that brown shoe. But because I'm a woman, that is how I'm wired. Even when we are thinking about the cement, for me, I've seen the what? So sometimes men have to learn about women's feelings, and also women have to also learn. As we stay with each other, let us try to learn what is the men's kind of world. Maybe when we talk about the books and whatever, we will recommend some of those books because it's hard to teach everything, but then it's very good for us to learn to read some of the things and we get to learn.
Wonderful insights. Counselor, in your assertion, you are saying that as the way I communicate to my loved one, that this pleases me, this is good for me, I like this. Also, the other way, I should let her know that this puts me off, this is not right. And you also told us that we use much of I instead of you. But people who are married here, please remember to say I love you. Don't say I love I. Eh? Say I love you. Yes. Let me come to Ezra. Elder, Counselor Evelyn has talked about those things that bring conflicts. We had families in the Bible who had conflicts, and there is a way they solved them. And they came from different angles. One of them was Zechariah and Elizabeth, which came out of the in-laws because of the birth they had given John the Baptist. And the issue was you either name him Zechariah or you don't. And so they were in that contention. Give a couple some advice how they can deal with conflicts that originate from money-related issues and parenting. And how can they ensure that they honestly solve these conflicts?
Well, it's a little challenging, especially in our context, where there is a lot of new dynamics. Your wife has a workplace and she has a career to pursue. She even has goals to achieve. Yourself equally has the same. Education. You equally have the same, and you are torn apart. But I think fundamentally, you need to go back to the basics. What does it tell, or what do you understand by the term relationship? What is it that you are relating? To relate, there should be core values. There should be things that you feel you have defined that will be your core values. It should be a common vision. As a couple, this is what we need to achieve. This will guide on each other's role. What will be the role of the woman towards achieving the vision for the family? What will be the role of the man? On these basics, it becomes common, easier for you now to handle the challenges. Challenges for the woman, challenges for the man, because remember, you are now one. The two have become one. Her problems become your problems. Your problems also become her problems. The most challenging aspect is when your problems turn a priority and her problems don't turn a priority. And you only want to say you are the head. True, you are the head. But can the head stand without the shoulder? Can the head stand without the legs? So while you are the head, you need these other parts. And that's why in the creation it says, I am creating you a suitable companion. Somebody that must help you now stand to become what? The head. So I would think that as a couple, we do not have money for the woman. That's my perception. We do not even have money for the man. But we have money for the what? For the family. It is this that guides. It is this that helps some of the problems. But when you have money for the woman and also money for the man, direction, the woman is also pulled in towards a particular direction. The Bible guides that we should ensure that we have oneness. Oneness in purpose, oneness in goal, oneness in what? In vision. But it's not something which is a day, a one-day incident. It is work in what? In progress. That requires that you should talk to each other effectively, like she was able to guide in communication. One man called Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before you are understood. When you seek to understand, it becomes easier for you to understand, to be understood. But at times we seek to be understood without us what? Understanding. I love that you're putting on specs. I love people called these ones work on the eyes.
Opticians.
You call them what? That one. Now, if you are suffering or you have an eye defect and you meet an optician who is putting on lenses like you are, then you say, I have an eye problem. He says, wow, I equally have what? An eye problem. Just put on these lenses that are going to what? Because they are also helping me. And then you put them on, things are not what? Working out. He says, no, you have a problem. To me, they are also what? So that's the element of communication. When you don't allow to understand, to understand others, and you are seeking to be understood, then you are bridging gaps of a relationship. Because you cannot relate with somebody you have not what? Understood. So as an optician, you have to take time to
Diagonalize.
That one. To diagonalize. You take time to understand, because there are people they call long-sightedness and short what?
Sighted.
They are all eye defects, but they are not the what?
The
same. Things may seem similar, but when they are not what? The same. So my view is, let's go back to the basics. The basics are that a couple or a relationship is not your business singly. It's actually God's what? Business. Because the Bible says this man was put to rest. I think she called it having a deep breath. Adam took a deep breath. Then from him, a woman was what? Was created. So God ordained that you should be with that person. She may have weaknesses, but that is the person God has what? Has given you. You must learn how to relate with her. So ideally, you must also reboot. Rebooting means when a relationship has gone a little sour, you go back to how you started it. Just like you can see these computers. There comes a time when a computer what? Jams or shutdowns. So what you do what? You reboot. Even relationship can be what? Rebooted. Then you begin to look at this person as part of you. When she's part of you, her expenses become what? Your expenses. Just like her expenses also become what? Your expenses. Then you begin to agree on this joint project that you are now going to have. The relationship must work out. By all means, it must what? Work out. That should be something you have at the back of your mind. That something must what? Work out. Sometimes people look at relationship from the perspective of separating. Even before they are talking to each other, each of them has taken what? A position. Now they find it difficult to have what called a middle what?
Ground.
A middle ground. In a relationship, there's what called a win-win. There's never a win-lose. Each of you must have things you are going to allow to sacrifice. Then also should have things what? Sacrifice, so that you can have a middle ground. You must define your core roles in as far as addressing those problems are what? Are concerned. That's what I would think can help.
I'm grateful, great insights, and we appreciate. I don't know how God made a family, but always in a family there is always one who is a good spender. True or false? True. There is always that good spender. And no matter whether money is there or it is not there, there is an urge to spend. and one of them is irritated because had earned money, and as it comes in, every village will know that really the money has entered. How do you advise such a couple to deal with such a situation?
Well, many a times people spend depending on how they view also their husbands. You
Or their wives, not only
also
that.
their wives. You may think she's a bad spender or a high spender, but she may also see that you have no vision. She has been with you for the past 5 years. There is nothing that is progressing. Yes, you are complaining over expenditure, but equally there is no demonstration of what? Of growth. In as far as you being the head is what? Is concerned.
Yeah.
I had an interaction with a friend called Elder Lugia. And he asked me, Ezra, we contributed towards your marriage. Have you ever seen us contribute towards anything else you've done? I said, no. He told me that we contribute because we believe that the person you are bringing is an asset. She's not what? A liability. She has something she's going to add in as far as your life is what? Is concerned. When we focus at you after 3 years, she came when you are riding a bicycle. After 3 years, you are still riding what? A bicycle. It is an abuse to an asset that what? Who contributed. We expect that now that you are with someone, you should be moving in a progressive what? Direction. Women tend to be big spenders when the husband lacks a visionary approach. She's not seeing you moving anywhere. So she wonders now, what else do I benefit from this relationship? She will begin to say, okay, let me also substitute this lack of visionary perspective to at least satisfy my personal what? Gratifications. But if she sees you are moving from one direction to another, sharing with her that, next year we need to expand our business to this level. We need to see that our family can be like this. We need to put up this infrastructure. Then that also can be able to what? To guide. However, spending is not bad as long as it is planned and it is what? Budgeted. Even her aspects, like she was able to define a woman, that women have things they love by virtue of being what? Women. They are part of the things you should be spending on. You must be able to put her interest into what? Perspection, because she's part of your project. She's part of the things that you should be focusing on, but entirely it's important that the two can sit, come up with like I said earlier, come up with your plan. What kind of family are you envisioning 5 years from now? What are your budget lines? What are your strategic directions? Then this will guide that either she can maintain her expenditure or compromise for her expenditure for the bigger picture of the what? Of the home.
Wonderful. Councillor Evelyn, you talked about EFT. I thought it works only in money matters. But I have come to understand that it is emotional focused therapy. Councillors, do you have a success story you can share with us? At times you talk a lot and we don't know how these things work. Names reserved that have worked, people who have solved their problems in an agreed environment.
What I know is that conflict is not the issue usually, but how it is handled. So yes, I've worked with a number of couples, and yes, I've seen some of them roll from very aggressive behaviors to people who can now collaborate. But because these couples agree to try out some of the new things that they learn, but they also continue to learn more about themselves, but to read more about educative, self-help materials. In church here, people get a chance, like what we are doing. This is not, it's unusual. It's not so common that you'll find people gathered and then they are teaching about marriage things, but people who are intentional to keep learning. So the few I've worked with, I'll just cite maybe one young couple that came and they used to have these fiery arguments because one felt that he came from a family whereby he is the only boy, and it's expected that he's supposed to reach a certain place by this time. So he used to get most of his directives from his mother because the father had died. And so because of that, he had too much pressure to make sure that he makes his mother happy. But remember, now he is married. And this girl is also wondering, why is he not like on us? Like when I suggest something, it will be the mother to say that that's okay, now you can do it. When he sees land, he only texts me when he has already bought it. And this young man, when after dealing with them, I realized he said, well, for me, I thought that I saw my father he's the one who used to go out there, do things. My mother used not to go out to hustle and so on. So I know that I'm supposed to buy the land and then take him. These are many things. But remember, because things have changed, girls are now exposed. According to her, she saw differently. She saw the mother be involved in the family development. So you see this great difference. And these are the things that almost tore their marriage apart because they felt, no, I don't matter in this home. You don't consider me like an important person. But when we touched on few things on how can they now discuss and tell them exactly what I feel about you, first asking your mother where we're going to buy land. This thing makes me sad. And this boy, actually in the session, he even teared, like he cried, because for him he said, I didn't know that all along this was hurting her to this extent. I thought I was doing my best. And I thought she would just appreciate. And so later on, because we used what he talked about, the emotional focus therapy allows people to be vulnerable, to talk about their feelings, to say how this makes me feel. And so we say that you cannot take away conflicts because we are very different. Whether we like it or not, one thing or the other will do what? Will bring up a conflict. But to learn how to handle. So they learned that, okay, when I see him doing this thing, I should be able to say that this is how I feel about it. This is how it makes me. I feel rejected every time you do this. Why? Because maybe I have a past of rejection. But the reason why we fear telling our partners these things is because we again have the fear that they will not listen to us. They will not, maybe they will use this against us and say, after all, you came, but this is what it means when you're married. Vulnerability. The moment we are not vulnerable to each other, then we can never be able to resolve the conflicts. They keep standing as a pattern because once he got to know that, oh, she wants to know where I'm buying land and what I'm going to do. So next time I'll tell you. But the problem is when I tell her, she'll again say, I don't like this place. This is too far, So she also gets to know that his fear is that when she gets to know, she's going to begin saying, this is too far. So this helps them to balance so that she does not stretch him a lot. Then he also does not avoid taking her around the property that they are acquiring. So this was a young couple. I used to do follow-ups and so on. And said, yeah, we manage. Like people should be able to manage because they don't become dependent on the counselor that every time they'll be coming back to me. But they learn, and then they continue learning. They continue growing together because every level that we get new conflicts. Yeah, by the way, when we are young, we are quarreling about 2-year-olds. As we grow, the things keep what? Shifting. So there is no day you will say that, even, I don't know, there are no very old couples in this church. I've not seen them. But even when we get real old couples, maybe they are married 50 years plus, don't you think they also still have conflicts? They do. But the whole thing is how to manage. Maybe I will also use lastly my own example.
That's okay.
I and my husband, we are too different. He came from a very large family, extended. I came from a nuclear family, just few of us. So we grew up being very careful with what you tell the other person because they will get annoyed and they'll report you to daddy. You see? So you were careful. When I said this person will get annoyed. And we grew up knowing this is my thing, this is my plate. We had plates. This is my plate, this is your plate. You don't use my cup, I don't use your plate. Like those were serious things because we were few. My husband came from a large family whereby life is easy. Yeah? easy. Do what you want. There are no the things of rules that hey, this is my thing, this is mine, what? And then you can say anything because you are joking. But I used to have trouble with that because he would even try to, when we're much younger in our marriage, 7 years below, try to joke. Even when he joked, I would go with it, yeah? Like keep reminding, you remember when you said this thing? And he's like, oh my God, I thought that I was just joking. I said, no, that was very painful. You said the thing and it hurt me. Then I realized, oh, that's how they grew up. He said, for us in our home, we could be like even 20 children at the same time. So you think, who cares? This one will come and use your thing. This one will say any word. This one will say you have a big head. And everything goes on. But for me, I was very careful because we grew up as very few children. You are careful what you say because if daddy comes and say, if I said I'm stupid, that is going to say, why did you say that? So they had attention to say how you treat other people. So I used to be a little bit very personal. But later on, I learned that we are just different. For him, he can be able to accommodate very many things, whether they are annoying or what. I wasn't able to do that. But I had to grow and learn that you can accommodate people who are different from you.
Wonderful, Evelyn. Let's clap for sharing that experience with us. People are not easy to open up to share their experiences with us. Hopefully you still own your plate. Elder, I'm coming to the audience. If you have questions, please prepare them. We'll have time for you. But let me take this question from Elder. Elder, there are recurring patterns of conflicts that come. And your spouse reminds you, even the other time you remember. So it keeps on coming. And it itches. And it pains until it goes sour. How do you help a couple to overcome that?
Well, sometimes it's difficult to even state that they are recurring. I think they are never recurring. Because conflicts emanate from a source. Now, if the source is not adequately handled, it's obvious that they will recur. They will keep what? Happening. One man said that people resort to conflicts not because they want, but because they have failed to come up with a mechanism how they can handle their differences. Differences are very much normal. By the way, I would even wonder how the world would be so ugly if we were looking alike. We have the same temperaments. We have the same emotions. We have the same looks. This world would be very, very bad to live in. I taught secondary school for some long time. And I also learned mathematics. You call it math? That one. Now, in math, when in P1 they taught P3, they said find the value of x. We looked for the value of x and found it. We thought it was done. In P4, they said find the value of what?
X and Y.
In P5, find the value of what? Up to today, they are still asking for the value of what? Of x. Challenges are part and parcel of humanity. As you solve one problem, you are creating another problem. Even in a relationship, there's no relationship that can ever be devoid of challenges. These will always come, and they'll be part and parcel of that what? Relationship. The most important is how do we deal with them. Before you got that lady, or before you got that husband, you had a problem of getting one. When you got that person, you now had the problem of that one. That also became what? A problem. And you are supposed to sort it out. Along the way, you created problems of children. You have also had those problems. So important is how do we deal with these conflicts? Can we identify what is the conflict? There are some conflicts which are perceived. You can think somebody has a problem, yet actually there's no what? Problem. And in you, you keep building it out of your own what? Perceptions. And because you have not changed your perception, the problem seems to be what? Recurring. Have you taken time to identify what the problem is? Is it communication? Is it personality? Is it her problem or it is your problem? Because you may think it is her problem, yet it is what? Yes. Your problem. You're a married person. The Bible has told you to love your wife. Are you loving her? Maybe you're not loving her, and now she's finding challenges for living with you, yet you're not what? Loving her. The Bible has told you respect your husband. You have not respected your husband, and you think life can what? Can move on normally. So when you have not played your role, which are already ordained by virtue of being in a relationship, there are some problems that will come because couples are not fulfilling their what? The obligations. As long as you have not fulfilled those obligations, the problems will keep what? Reoccurring. She's living deficiency of your love. If love is not provided, then the conflicts will what? Will continue. You are living deficiency of lack of respect. She has gone to school, she has got a master's in law, she has gotten masters in gender issues, and now she has turned her home into one of the court sessions. She has turned her home into a form of activism. You know, I have my rights. Yes. But you also know that rights and obligations go hand in what? In hand. So fundamentally, all the conflicts within the home always have a source. So the two couples must be able to sit and discover what could be the source of the what? Of the conflict. Until the source is handled, the reoccurrence will also what? Occur. But as a Bible scholar, it's important to again go back to the initiator. You see, this is not our project. I've always said marriage is God's what? Project. What kind of vision did God have on families? That can help us. What purpose did he ordain for these what? Families? That can help us. What are the principles he set? He says that what he has brought together, no one should what? Put asunder. So work around the clock to ensure that there is no separation, but there's what? Harmony.
Wonderful. Audience, I want to throw the ball to you if you have one question or two so that they can be handled. If we haven't answered them here, let me see those who have questions. And supplements, not only questions. You may have something that you'd like the audience to feel. Please open up. We are mending each other so that we build families that will last long and also give honor to God. As you think about those questions, there is something I want you to answer, the two of you. There is when conflicts arise and someone turns into silent mode. Mute. And they are told right away from their tradition, I shouldn't respond, so keep quiet. Even when he does this, please keep quiet. And people are silent, and they die in silence, and we bury them when they are silent. What should we do?
Now, the good thing you say, that is what they know. We do things, we behave the way we behave because of what we saw when we were growing up, how we were treated when we grew up, how we saw conflict being solved. But of course now when we go back to science, there's something called the attachment theory, whereby if someone's attachment was disorganized from childhood, that is how they learn to relate. Yeah? Either they relate in a manner that is anxious, anxiously avoidant, or the way we relate is according to how our attachment was formed, theory was formed in us. If our first carer, maybe a mother who was so young, a teenage mother, who could not be able to manage a child, or a mother who was too busy, the child, especially at those very important stages of attachment, you are disorganized, you learn not to trust. So that is how we react to things when they happen to us. The person who is withdrawn, for them, that is how they manage conflict. They feel if I said these things to them, they will not listen. One, they will not listen to me. They already have a prejudgment. They will not listen, so the best thing is to keep quiet with my thing. I've ever met a lady. We had a group. We were trying to form a support group for women to come and speak about some of the things they feel and learn from each other. But some woman surprised me. She told me that her and her husband had been in a silent mode. These days, women call it lucilica. This woman was a very highly educated woman, but they had been quiet for 1 month. And it was so serious, by the way. They could even write notes. Until one time, the guy was going to fly out of the country, and he wrote a note that I'm leaving for about 2 weeks. Yeah? But the good thing, he had told the daughters that I will not be around. So this one hadn't even read the what? The cheat. But I just want to say that, of course, they separated, right? Because things that are not talked about become toxic. Yeah? They kill. As you're sleeping, you're thinking how bad, how ugly this person is, how they are the worst people. But you see, when you speak, it lessens on the toxicity. So the withdrawer, we have usually either a pursuer and a withdrawer. The withdrawers treat with silent treatment. And they will, usually it's commonly the men who are withdrawers, but we realize that some women are also withdrawers. And then the pursuer, for them, they attack. Yeah? They attack so hard that the withdrawer keeps even running away.
Men say that if they don't withdraw, the slap acts faster.
Yeah, yes, both of them, these are things that are inbuilt in us. But we learn to at least, the withdrawer should come to the pursuer, and the pursuer, all of us should soften. The pursuer should soften a bit so that the withdrawer can be able to open up. And the withdrawer should also move a little bit closer to the pursuer so that the pursuer feels accepted. Because the pursuer, usually inside them, there's rejection. If I don't fight so hard, this is what I went through. From young, when I was a child, I was rejected. And even this is going to happen again. So there is this tension. So a pursuer can be very hard. They are the ones who are a bit cynical. They will speak words, speak this one, speak the other one. The withdrawer keeps hiding and dodging and silent mode. And then the spiral goes on. But when we apply things like validation and trying to understand people from their perspective, and then trying to be vulnerable and tell the person that anyway, the only way I can be able to show you that I'm not happy, I withdraw from you because I feel when I tell you, you're not going to listen. Yeah, because when I'm speaking to you, you tend to be in your phone, you tend not to care, so that this person learns that, oh, so this thing really is so bad. I need to improve on this. Because if we don't say, we'll still live the same way, in, they're out. Until, unfortunately, some couples separate when they are not supposed to separate. Yeah.
Are you a pursuer or you are not? You are a withdrawer. That is a question for you. Have we gotten some questions within the audience? Let me see a hand if there is any. Yes, thank you very much. Please help me with the microphone to that beautiful lady there. There is a question here. Okay, speaker will project your voice. You can come.
Yes, thank you. My question goes to Elder. He talked about the finances, managing the finances. But how I understood it, he talked about you agree on the vision, mission, and all that.
Okay.
But as if it goes to only the part of women and man working. He didn't specify what if one of you is not working. How will you manage that?
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Any other question or supplement? Okay, Elder, you can handle that.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have narrowed work to only salaried employment. But even the wife or the spouse who is at home, she's actually working and doing a lot of work. She's praying for you. She's taking care of your children. She's ensuring that if you have a garden, it is being tended well. Maybe there could be some projects at home which she's actually managing. It is not true to say there is someone who is not working. Both man and woman are working. Either one is working at a destined workplace and another is working at what? At home. The fundamental within the concept of finance is that the two should be working towards one core objective. The two should be working towards one core goal. The two should be working towards expanding and ensuring their family is growing from strength to what? To strength. Not that I am doing this and this is mine. She's also doing this and that is hers. That is very dangerous. It causes retardation of the family development and growth. It also causes conflicts because you will not be able to be dependent on one another. In a relationship, there's dependency and interdependence. The two live to support one another. It is not necessary that one must be bringing tangible cash for you to say she's making a contribution. Even by virtue of being in your home, she's making what? A contribution. I may use my personal experience. When I chose to marry, I didn't go for one who had completed education. That was not my interest. My vision was I'll look for a young lady. One, she must be beautiful. So I found out one who was beautiful. So I put a tick. Then the second one, she must be God-fearing. So she was also what? God-fearing. She was just senior 4 by then, and I chose to take her back to school so that she can enroll for further what? Education. But my interest was not that she gets to have a degree to go and work. No. My interest is that she can get this degree and she adds value to the what? To the family. While she was not in salaried employment, she was doing a lot of home management. My nature of job makes me move up and down. So whatever resources I would get, I would say, now we want to build a house. This is the plan. Kindly go and what? And supervise. She was able to add value to me because by the time I was marrying her, I was renting. When we began staying together, we are no longer what? Renting. Yes, she's not in salaried employment, but she's making what? A contribution. Because she's in managing my investments. So in all instances, all those who work and those who don't work are all making what? A contribution. Let's look at a family from the concept of what God intends it to be. God intends that that person becomes your companion, that person becomes your helper, that person becomes part and parcel of you. That is the understanding that I want to think that we should take in my view.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elder, and thank you for taking care of that young lady until you fulfilled your promise. It is important some men don't fulfill your promise. Let's give a hand of applause to Elder for that. Young men, don't go to senior 4 looking for spouse. It worked for him. It may not work for you. Please listen to God first, what he's telling you. Any other question? You were stretching yourself. Okay, wonderful. Do you recommend some resources or books that people would read so that as they are in middle of that conflict, they may not get someone to talk to, but they may read these resources so that they're in position to get some enlightenment?
Yes, Elder. Thank you so much for this question. Like I said, knowledge is power. When you learn, at least you're not left in a gap whereby you continue doing the same things ever. There's a book I read when I was young, I told you that I used to be a little bit very touchy and very, this thing is mine. It's supposed to be like this. Here, it's supposed to be like this. But then I did not know what to do about this because, like, I realized I keep complaining about this all the time. But my partner is not, like, even affected. For him, he used to even wonder, how can someone get annoyed because you moved this thing from here and put it the other side? So I read a book he talked about that guy, Covey, To Understand and Be Understood. Yeah, I read that book many years ago. Actually, I still look for it. I don't know, maybe it's still... Yes, there's that one, but that one was just to understand and be understood. So that's how I read things like, yes, when people meet, they are different. One may not mind if they get Colgate, they might press it from up, and then the other one from the bottom. This will not kill you. You learn to accommodate others. It's normal because you're different. You see things differently. You grew up in different homes. You can never be the same. So I just kept reading that book. And I said, oh, okay, because my dad was a perfectionist. Everything of his up to today, even if the house is dark, my father will not look for a torch. He will just come like this and pick it. He will not look for he doesn't look for his slippers. Like, where are they? Where he leaves them, they are there. Now he's old. He's about 74. That is how he is. So I thought all men are like that. I thought they know where they do that. So I used to compare a lot with my dad. But when I read To Understand and Be Understood, it helped me. But there are other books today which are quite popular. The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John M. Gottman. Gottman, you can even listen to him on audios, on YouTube. He's a marriage therapist, known worldwide. He has done lots of research, and his research has shown that it works. There's The Adventist Home, our own book. All of us should have this book in our library. Ellen White has very good teaching about a Christian family, how a couple can relate together well. Everything is embedded in that book. So that's our own book, and we have here people who are literature evangelists. She also has another one called Family Life Growth Series. This is a series of about I think 7 in 1. You just read, each of them has something that they are addressing. Those days, maybe in the old days, not our times, the sengas were still applicable. Girls and women, men used to even say, I'll take you back to your senga to teach you. I hear they used to take back women or girls to their sengas and said, this lady, she has started talking back to me. That means she has started growing wings. So they take you back to the senga, and the senga starts to teach you again. You come back when you've reformed a bit. But that is the times of our mothers. We don't have any sengas. I don't know if I would be able to even do that for my own niece, even in future, because she won't do that. It's quite a different kind of world today. So we don't have people who are there to support us, to say, how are you finding the marriage? How are things working? Everyone is dying alone. No one helps the other. So you need to learn to read and get these self-help materials. The other one is Men from Mars, Women from Venus by John Gray. Very popular book. This one can talk about the differences we have with each other by the mere fact that you're male, by the mere fact that you're female. We even come from different planets. Therefore, we meet. What we learned in Venus is different. What we learned from Mars is different. So that makes us to conflict. So he gives very, very viable advice. All these books are there in bookshops. His Needs, Her Needs by Willard F. Harry. Men have their needs and women have their. And when those needs are not met, conflict will do what? Will arise. And then the 8, To Have and to Hold. This is also, I think, our own. Nancy Van Pelt. Then we have, To Have and to Hold is very good for young people who are dating, yeah? Christian date, even people who are married, but mostly when you're dating, it's a very good book to read. Then 8 Dates by Gottman. Love Languages, John Gray. Everyone must read Love Languages. One of the reasons we fight is because I understand love to mean that you care about me, you buy me gifts, you remember my birthday, you do what? For you, you understand love, that I cook for you good food, yeah, I wash your clothes. For some people, that is love. And if I'm not doing that, you'll feel not loved. If you're also not buying me gifts, I'll also not feel loved. And therefore, these things will make us to do what? To conflict. So, reading is self-help. You, by the time, and also embrace, this one lastly, embrace counseling. Do not run away from counseling, because we said those days, the singers were doing their job, and maybe they called jazz. I don't know much about called jazz, but it was popular for girls to be given too much information, and they meet a very unprepared young man, yeah? But because it worked in those days, it's no longer working now. So sometimes once in a while, if your issues are escalating, and you realize you've applied all these things we have taught you, you've used I statements, you have tried to, to do this, but the things are doing what? Escalating, and you are at the verge, you might break up. Yet, maybe if you are helped, you may not break up. Please go and look for a professional counselor. And also go to the pastor to pray for you, to help you, but also go to a professional what? Counselor. Because sometimes you need a middle person. That is how we were. From time immemorial, someone used to come and be in the middle and help you. You tell me yours. What is this? Like that. And somehow life, what? Moves on. Thank you, Elder.
Thank you, Counselor. One hand from the audience, then we close. Yes, please come. There is another one. Okay, we have two. The questions are coming when we are closing, eh? Okay.
Thank you so much, our facilitators. My question is about taking risks in a family. I didn't hear much of that being tackled. Now, mine is about taking risks. The kind of risks that we have to take sometimes as men, they are very healthy to us, although sometimes they backfire and we get demotivated. But at times you find that you have probably a business idea, which is going to need a lot of funding, probably from the family. You need to use a family saving. And then your spouse pulls you down, probably judging you from the past. But again, you feel that this is an opportunity that you must seize. You get, but you pull it down. So as a man, sometimes you are forced to overrule the decision from your spouse, and then you take that risk. At times it can work, at times it may not work. But usually when it works, I know our wives want to associate themselves with the risks that we took. But I would want to understand from your point of view, how should we manage such uncertainties when they happen?
Thank you. Elder, come. Give the microphone to Elder.
Mine is not a question, but it's a kind of a supplementation. Eh? Borrowing from the analogy that the common saying that you don't throw the baby with a dirty water. The principle behind it is that you save the good thing and you dispel the bad ones. It's unfortunate that sometimes when couples are faced with conflicts, we don't separate the conflict from the person. Now, instead of separating the person from the conflict so that you can face the conflict, say, for example, if it is unnecessary spending, the best thing would be to go and make a budget, right? And you stick to the budget. You say, we are going to work on the budget we drew together. So this time around, we shall not spend anything outside. But instead, we now take this person's habit of spending is too much, I can't bear it. And you feel like you should dispel the person. In other words, you go for a separation because of a certain bad character in a partner. Rather than focusing on the problem, you sort it out and then you stay together. The knowledge is that marriage itself is not bad, but there are certain bad elements which come in as in our characters that we can work on and we fix and we save the baby, which is the marriage, rather than throwing it out with the dirty water. That's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. We are grateful, Elder. You want to handle the risk issue or Evelyn? Who wants? Okay, from a woman point of view, then man point of view. Evelyn, please come.
Okay. Yeah, what he spoke about taking risks. And like I still want to say, the reason men take more risk is because they are men. Yeah? Still, it comes to the difference. That's why God saw it and said, the man will live with a woman. There's one who is stronger in certain things, the other one. It's not so common to see women going to the bank and say, I want to borrow 100 million. I'm going to begin a business. I'm going to buy land. Women will say, if I borrow 100 million now, supposing they come and take my house, how will I pay it? They will reason so many times. A man will say, I'm getting 100 million. He'll think about how he'll pay it after he has got it. He gets it, buys the land. Okay, sometimes it might be successful. Sometimes maybe it may not be. But at least he took the what? The risk. That is not bad in itself. The whole thing is to know our differences. You can take the risk because you've been blessed by God to have that within you. And that was a God-given ability to the men. Maybe if we were the same so much, we wouldn't move on in life very well. But however, what brings the issue is the communication. Someone buys land and has put in the family house as a surety in the bank. Because for us women, you know it, that still the woman will say, but what if? But in the case, if this thing happens, and then the bank comes and takes our house, that woman's contribution is also what? Valid. The whole thing is how to support one another. Because that what if is going to help you think and say, okay, now, instead of us using our house, maybe let's use some land, whereby if the bank takes it, we'll not. If not, we'll have to find ways. Sometimes men forget that women can be very helpful when it comes to helping them to pay a loan. A woman will be helpful if you involved them from the start, that I've taken a risk, a manly risk. Maybe it's also good. That's why we say to understand and be understood. The woman should also be understanding that he is doing it from the perspective of a what? A man. The woman is also speaking from the perspective of a what? A woman. Then we said, this is it. I'm going to do this. Then you talk about, okay, she will ask you, but how are we going to pay it? The fears will come. Help her. Allay her fears. And say, yeah, I know, but we can do this and this. Then when she's also part of it, she will also remember, okay, maybe I can also get some money from my job, and we pay together this loan, and we finish. I had a young couple who split 9 months after their marriage, and they had a baby already. And what was making them split? The young man married, and he lost his job immediately. But he kept quiet. He didn't tell the girl. So they moved on. Kumbe the guy, how to survive? He was borrowing from A to Z, D, X, Y. Yeah? And the debts were so many that people started calling the wife. And imagine when the wife is still a Mugole. So she started now getting in arms because you have thrown away your responsibility already. You have already shown her that you're not able to manage this. So now that's how the conflict comes. So she started, why are you borrowing money? You always borrow money. So when they came for counseling, he said, she is so, she's a dictator, Amfuganyo. Like she wants me to tell her everything, what I'm going to use the money for. But it's because in the first place, he made her to end up paying about 6 people. Here they have a baby. She's only sleeping in a house of a job, and she didn't know about these things. So usually the issue comes if you don't involve each other. The risk is okay because that's a manly ability that God gave you to be because you are the head. But this helper is helping you to mitigate. But you see. So when you involve them in their weakness, they will say, my husband borrowed a loan. So she will even try to save. doesn't use money anyhow because we have a big loan and we need to complete it. So once you involve her, but when you don't and she discovers later, that is fire. That is when issues go out of hand.
Thank you very much. Men, be open for those balances and checks. You want to say something on part of men for the risks they take? They look at the elephant and the lions and they want to jump on it.
Well, it is also maybe premised on a number of considerations. In whose interest are you making that risk? If the risk is being done in the interest of the family, then involving them becomes very, very important. It's always important to involve your spouse in everything you're doing, because she will eventually be an affected party. If it works out well and good, she's still an affected what? Party. If it doesn't work out, still she's an affected what? Party. Everything within a home is not in our interests as men. It is in the interest of the women. It is in the interest of the what? Of the family. Your only head. A head, like I said, represents the other parts of the what? The body. So when you're doing this, involve her. Seek her opinion. But the question is, suppose there's contestation like you was able to array, that you are failing to agree. I think then the head can take a decision, because that's what makes you become the what? The head of the family. But when the fallback now comes, assuming things did not work out, still come back to her and explain. If possible, you can even apologize, because an apology is not something big. Humility is strength. Humility is what? Is strength. Saying sorry, please, I think I had overrated my anticipation, will not take anything away from you. You will still remain what? A man. Being a man is not necessarily a position or title. It's biological. You're a man because you are what you are. So there's nothing that goes off you when you say sorry. I think I overrated this and things have not worked out. Then you also give her a plan on how you think you can make a recovery of that particular loss. Fundamentally, these are homes where you are living with other people. If the children have also grown, learn to involve them. Involving them is not necessarily that they should make decisions, but it is intended to make the entire group grow together. When you are involving your wife, you are growing with her. When you are involving your children, you are growing with her. It will limit many other challenges. In Africa, we've been having a big problem. I don't know how it comes, but you'll see a family being so successful at some point. Then when the man dies, everything what? Dies with him. Because the man was doing it alone and was not involving the other what? The other members. In family aspects, I always want us to use the Indian model. The Indian model is involving everybody. The children are involved. The spouses are what? So when they're involved, you grow with them. And even when you're not there, they can still run the family project. You were asking of the books to refer. The best book is the Bible. The best book is what? The Bible. Read the Bible. It has everything. All these case scenarios are there. Scenarios of women who are overspending, they're in the Bible, and how they were able to overcome that. People who are adulterous and have sexual challenges, they're also there. The Bible will teach you. The Bible, to me, is one of the best references if you are to have a stable and successful family.
Thank you very much. Audience, join me as we appreciate the two counselors for the time they have put in and sharing their experience with us. The reason Family Life Desk brings these things to you is to ensure that we solve these conflicts and resolve them in a way that strengthens and deepens our relationship, so that we don't go to the level where domestic violence can come as a result of conflicts which are not put into order. We want to thank you. Thank you for being with us. We wish you a good afternoon. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we want to invite you in our decisions, in our actions as families, that, Lord, you will always lead us to make decisions. The number of issues we've learned here involving each other, the stakeholders of the family, so that we own the family in the decisions that we take. Guide our minds, guide our relationships, that we're in position to help each other to stand. And Father, I want to pray for any person who is in the valley of decision what to do, that, Lord, you will give him or her wisdom on how things should be done. And Father, we will always give you honor and testify of your goodness for this. I pray for every family represented here, for your love, that you will count it in your heavenly kingdom. Thank you, for this is a humble prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Members of church board, please go to the church board room. There is a meeting. They are waiting for you.